Right, it's time to take a look at the basics of sampling. So Ableton has two samplers built into it. If you have Ableton Live Suite, you'll have access to the sampler and one that's also called Simpler. And we're going to concentrate on Simpler today as it's a bit more straightforward. So clicking and dragging below our last track creates a new track with Simpler on it. And it looks quite complex down here, but don't worry, we're going to deal with the simple stuff. As you can see in the main window here, it's asking us to drop a sample in. So how about we put a little vocal glitch sound onto our track. So I've typed in Vox in my search bar up here, and then clicking on samples, there's one I've pre-prepared.
Sa 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 ri 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 sa ni dha ni sa 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 ri ri.
Okay, so you might be thinking at the moment, wow, how are we going to get anything useful out of that? It seems like a completely different genre. So what we're going to do is show you how you can manipulate these sounds by sampling them. So sampling really is just taking a recorded piece of music or a recorded sound and editing it and creating a whole new version of it that you can either turn into your own song or complement the song you're working on. So we're going to drag and drop this sample into the box here, and it's now got the audio wave file here. These are the start and end points of where we want the sample to play from. So I'm going to drag it roughly to the first bit of audio that we can hear. Now in order for this to make a sound, we actually need to trigger it with MIDI notes. So what we'll do is click and drag an area in our looped section. This is our most busy section of the track at the moment that we've been working on. Highlighted that area, Command, Shift and M creates a blank MIDI track. Okay, so double clicking on that, we can put any note in here. And what I want to do is just drag it maybe for about half a bar here. This is so that every time this note is sounded, we get to hear some of the sample. If I just had it this long, we would only hear like a part of the sample. I mean, we want to know, we want to hear enough of it so that we can decide whether we're going to use it or not. Okay, why not make it a whole bar just in case. All right, let's go back into the sampler. If we trigger, let's solo this first of all, and let's play the clip. Now you can hear it's very, very high pitched at the moment. That's because the note I chose is a little bit higher than C3. And what I mean by C3 is the key on the keyboard that is decided by Simpler as the default pitch. So when you press C3 on your keyboard, it'll play the sample that you dropped into Simpler at its original pitch. Okay, so in fairness, or maybe I should have done that. It can be adjusted the other way around, but we'll keep it straightforward. So let's just move this down to C3. There we go. And now when we play,
Sa 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 ri 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 sa.
You can hear its original pitch. Now, I want to change it so that it's trying to get it in key with what we've already got. So if I solo what we've got, which I have, plus the bass line and the keys, this should give us enough melody to work out how to get our new vocals sounding in the same key.
Sa 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 ri 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 sa ni dha sa 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 ri 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 sa.
All right, I think up a couple of transpositions. Well, let's drag the end point here. Okay, I'm happy that that first bit is pretty close to being the right key. What I'm going to do is going back to our MIDI clip. Now we don't need this to be so long. I'm going to make little glitches, so let's say just about this much. Maybe a bit longer. Yeah, that's great. I'm going to duplicate a few notes, and so one there. And then maybe one there. I'm being pretty random here. I'm just going to see how it sounds when we press play. change the lengths of some of them. Okay, so it's not making too much difference. That's because we need to change the area here. This is where it's going to start from. Sounds a bit like arse. Accidental, but I like it, so we're going to leave it in. Okay, so maybe it's a bit boring at the moment. What we're going to do is we're going to find another part of this sample. So I should mention actually, the way I'm zooming here is very similar to the way that we do when we zoom in and out of the arrangement view. Click, hold, and then up zooms out, down zooms in. So let's duplicate this whole track now with Command and D whilst the track's highlighted, and that makes an exact copy. So now we have, let's make sure it's also soloed so that we can hear it. So we have two of exactly the same thing that's going to play. But what we want to do is make the second one play a different part of this sample now. Okay, so let's just experiment with moving the braces around. This is the best way to do it really, is just use your ears and have a bit of a play. It's the same really, isn't it? Let's find something a bit more different. Okay, that's a nice amount different, but of course it's playing at the same time as the other one. So with this second one now, let's move these notes around a bit. Let's highlight all of these and move them about there. Let's bring this one, let's put a new one, just a short one about there. Okay. And let's try another area. That's nice because it's got a kind of rhythmical. Okay, I'm happy with those two bits. Sound nothing too special at the moment, but what we can do is add some effects to them and change the levels, etc., and see how they sit in the mix after that. Okay, so with the first one, I'm thinking these kind of glitchy vocals would benefit from quite a lot of reverb, so let's add that on for this first one. Just going to bring in the reverb that we used before. Yeah, all the way up. Let's do that for both. Let's pan them as well. Quite wide for these, I think. And let's get the delay. And let's get their volumes down a bit. And you can really just play around with the start and end points of the sample. So flexible. Let's change the transposition of this second one. There we go, that's kind of cool. Okay, let's take a look at a slightly different way of using the simpler now and use a different sample. So what we're going to do, let's go to Instruments, double click this time. Oh no, actually, because we don't have a spare audio track, so we're going to drag and drop just below all of our other tracks, and that will create a MIDI track, to put the simpler instrument into. Right, and this time I thought I'd look for a guitar sample. So I've typed guitar into the search there. Press enter, and then let's find a clip with a guitar. And see, this one's highlighted. That's because I've already, I'm one step ahead. See, I've looked into this. Okay, and there we have our guitar sample. So just playing any key on the keyboard now. Well, let's play C3 because we know that that's the default key to play the sample back at its original pitch. So just a straightforward rhythmic acoustic guitar there. So remember before we were using these little triangles here to drag to different parts of the sample for a start and an end point. So for example, if we focused on that bit there and then click and drag down to zoom in so we have a better idea. Let's play on the keyboard now. So it's just playing that very short sample there. Let's take a look at some of the features in Simpler we can use to manipulate our sound further. Start is the point where the playback will start from. Sounds straightforward, so if we increase that, within the part that we've highlighted, it's going to change the start time. So you can use this to find very specific start points if you want maybe a bit more tack or something softer. Let's just have it at the beginning there. And the length of the sample that's going to play whilst you hold down the key. We can increase that or get it right down to a tiny little blip. Okay, let's have that full for now. We can also change what's called the envelope of the sound, and this is where we can change how quickly the sound comes in. So with a slower attack, it takes longer for it to sound. So if I turn it right up, you can see there's a very quiet part before it sounds, and as we decrease the attack time, it fades in a lot quicker, all the way down to it being very staccato-like at the beginning with a sharp attack. So let's soften this little clip up a bit by increasing the attack, so it's not so harsh at the beginning. See, here we have a loop button. If we enable that, holding down the key loops the sample over and over. And then using the loop percentage knob, we can adjust how much of the loop is repeated. As we decrease it, it decreases the amount that's looped. So we get the initial part played once here in the grayed out bit, and then this brightened bit gets looped depending how big or small it is. So you can get some crazy sounds there. Let's leave it all the way up for now. If we enable the snap button, this allows Ableton to guess where the start and end point of a waveform is on a zero crossing. And that just means that the loop is less likely to clip as it repeats over and over. On this sample, it's not too noticeable, but on others you'll find that really helpful, particularly for vocals. If you want, if you have a very short, say for example it goes ah, that's my beautiful singing voice there. You'll quite often hear it goes ah, ga, 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 like that. I know what you're thinking, I should be on X Factor. But with the snap feature, it can make it a lot smoother. So every time it repeats, you don't have the clicking and the glitch sounds. If we decrease the loop length, let's say about halfway, we can make it sound more natural by fading in the looped section now. With this percentage, you can see the bars coming in there, and that's indicating a fast or a slow fade in. That can also help to take away the snappiness or the really fake sound of it repeating. See, as we increase it there, it sounds more like one sustained instrument. One sustained note. So we're already pretty far away from that original acoustic sample. Let's get it even more crazy sounding now. In the filter section here, we can turn on or off. You can choose a filter type, varying from low pass, band pass, high pass, and a notch type filter. And this is how we can manipulate the sound further. So starting with a low pass filter. If we decrease the frequency, it starts to take out all the higher elements of the sound. And we can change the resonance here. We also can change the transposition of the sound. Just leave it as it was. Here's a nice feature, having the glide, and there's two versions here, portamento and glide. Portamento you can use for polyphonic sounds, so multiple keys played at once, and we can increase or decrease the time it takes to go from one note to another, whilst two notes are held down, or two or more notes are held down. Let's take it up a couple of seconds here. And now I'm going to press a higher key. Pretty cool. And we can increase that even more for a slower glide time. So we can have multiple keys there happening all at the same time. And if we put it onto glide, that's more monophonic. Let's just decrease how long it takes to go from notes. So if I have one low key depressed, keeping it down, I press a high key, and then I let that high key go. It's just switching between the two. As long as I have the low one, as long as I have one finger on a key, pretty cool. We're not going to use this for now. Let's have a little bit more high frequencies coming through. Okay, let's take a look at the LFO section now. LFO stands for low frequency oscillator, and this can modulate the frequency cutoff and also the transposition. So we can get some wah-like sounds. Let's modulate the filter cutoff first of all. So with this enabled, let's turn the LFO amount up. Say about there. Hold down a key. And you can see it's modulating the filter cutoff here. We can increase the velocity and how much of the filter is being influenced. And we can also increase the rate or decrease the rate of that here. Nice and slow. To manically fast. And rather than have it in hertz, we can also get it to be in time with our beat. So what we'll do is start the drums. Actually, we'll have them on their own and just our sampler. Pretty cool, huh? Let's make it more subtle by decreasing the velocity. All right, now let's take another look at the other LFO, okay, which is going to determine how much transposition modulation we're going to get. So we can get some crazy amounts here. Kind of sci-fi sounds, or you can make it very subtle. If you want to keep it, you know, in key with whatever you're playing. Let's get that glide back again. Okay, pretty nuts and not that musical, but you can see the potential here. You can spend hours playing with this and getting some really freaky sounds, things that you'd never be able to think of, and things that only come to you with experimenting. And that's the beauty of Ableton and how simple and achievable, I guess, they make it even for beginners like us. So give this a try. I'm sure you're going to come up with some excellent sounds.